Crack on. Ready?
Oh no.
Hold on.
Yes.
Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of Length Does Matter. Johnny, how's things?
All right, mate. Been potting me bugs today.
We're ready to go. This might come out after the Portugal trip, but we are recording it before we leave.
We might have been and gone.
It's a big week for the old Length Does Matter boys.
We might have. I'll tell you what. We might have bloody split up. Spending 3 days together.
We might not have a producer in a few days' time. See how Joe gets on.
Makes or breaks. Stuff like this, Mara. 3 days
absolutely.
together. But yeah, the bags are nearly packed.
I think we're both slightly excited by today's guest. As you've just pointed out before we started recording, that he's our first international cricketer we've had on Length Does Matter, which is
first one,
if you ask me.
Tell you what, he's waiting.
He's in the waiting room now.
He's waiting to come in before we've even had the chance to introduce him.
Here we go. This is one all the local lads will enjoy. He's just connecting up now.
Rusty, what's up then?
Jimmy Adams,
all
how
right,
are you?
man? Not too bad, mate. Not as good as you, but hanging in nonetheless.
Nah, you're looking good, mate. You're looking good.
I appreciate the compliment, mate, but I'm feeling old. Don't worry. Johnny, how you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Can't complain, bud.
Not
that anybody would listen.
Well, this is it, mate. The weather looks reasonable where you are, Jimmy. Where are you? Tell everyone.
I'm in Toronto, mate. I'm spending time with my brother and his family for a few days.
Top man.
Yeah. My mom lives here, see, and it's not very often we get a chance for all her children to be in the same place at the same time. So when we get the opportunity, we take it nowadays. Yeah.
Good lad. Well, thank you for interrupting the family break coming on.
No, man, it's all right, man. It's a working day, so a lot of the lads are out working. So yeah, it's afternoon, so we won't start smashing up the place until later tonight. Yeah.
That sounds more enjoyable. That's right up my street.
Jimmy, what
anyway,
is it
before y'all get started, let me just say, on record, congrats, Rushy. Been following your career from a distance, and really pleased for you, mate. I hope you can keep going for much longer.
Thanks, mate. Yeah. Appreciate that. It's
man.
One of my earliest memories of being a young lad, attending all these coaching courses as you do. Obviously, you did a bit of coaching with my old man down at Easington with Ron Young, Gary Hume, those kind of. And I remember my old man turned up one day after a coaching session or whatever, and he was a cricket ball. I took some wickets with one game, and Jim signed it. He got it mounted on a little stand and stuff. And as a young cricketer, having something like that, it was extra special. But obviously, I got to know you a little bit over the years, and just being able to have a big crack, and the fact that you send well wishes and things, it's nice. It means a lot.
Well, you see, a lot of things that people take for granted now wasn't always the case. So, having been in the area when Durham were making the transition from a minor county into county cricket, Durham-born county players in the early days is a rarity. You lads have come in at a time when a lot of you have more Durham lads than you have outsiders. It wasn't always the case, I remember when Jimmy Daly used to play, he was one of a few local lads playing with the likes of Ian Botham and all of them that got imported in the early days. But it's always been, just with the association over the years, it's been good to see lads coming through a local system and going on, not just to make the team, but obviously to make the team and do well, like you and quite a few others have done over the years. It's been good to watch because of my own sort of connection with the area and stuff like that. And I think people like yourself, I would hope that you wouldn't feel sort of special in that sense. But for those of us old enough who remember the days when local lads were a rarity, it is special to us to see lads coming through doing the business, you know.
Very well said. Okay then, Jim. So, what is it you're up to these days, man?
I'm 4.5 years into being director of cricket for Cricket West Indies. Interesting role that covers almost everything at the minute. It's early days for the role. There was a gentleman called Richard Pybus who had the role for 3 years before me, but it's still early days for the role. It's still evolving. And I have no doubt that as time goes on, the role will split up into more specialist areas. But very interesting role, very challenging, and very interesting and very frustrating in equal measure.
What actually is so director of cricket at sort of counties and first class teams? Is there a big difference in what the role is at international level? Obviously, you've got a wider.
Not really, Rushy. Basically, what all of us are doing are trying to make sure that the entity makes the best possible cricket decision, all things being equal. That's a primary role. To vet the cricket decisions or the decisions that will affect the game in the different areas. So high performance, grassroots, you name it. But it also serves a few other issues. So if you look at your county director of cricket, or whatever, the different counties have different names for that person. But I think Durham have one now in the Australian lad, North, Marcus North, yeah. You sometimes act as a buffer so that your coaches can go about the job without necessarily complicating or adversely affecting their role with the players. So the easiest example is you have a tough decision that needs to be made and communicated. I will be the person who does that. Marcus North will be the person who does that. The coach might agree, but the coach might undermine his relationship with the players if he takes ownership of that openly in the midst of the players. So one of the side effects of having that role filled is it sometimes can take, in a good sense, pressure off the coach. So his relationship with the players doesn't get affected negatively. So there's that side of it. In the Caribbean, the biggest part of the role is just trying your best to make sure that what is in effect a very, very political organization attempts at least to make good cricket decisions. And therein lies probably the biggest challenge, because on top of all the usual challenges that come with any DOC in that role anywhere in the world, is the fact that we are not really one entity geographically. We're all sovereign nations. And everybody's very proud of where they come from, and everybody has local stakeholders and blah, blah, blah. So you can see how challenging sometimes it can be if a decision might be best for the organization long term, but in the short term, it might affect one or two local stakeholders. It can get a little bit interesting when you go to some of these board meetings, but it keeps the job fresh, man.
But do you get hands-on coaching, or are you just admin side only and let
very little? It's more admin, making sure that the coaches who are in place are equipped as best as possible to deliver results.
Yeah.
I tend to get the it's difficult to explain, but if we run into issues and we're short with hands on deck, then sometimes I'll find myself doing a little bit of hands-on coaching.
But generally stick out now and again, do you?
I have to, because I don't know what I'll be doing when this role finishes. So I have to make sure that it's still working. But it hasn't been out that often. And oh dear, I took it out recently with some under 19 lads for about a week. And yeah, the shoulder is still recovering, mate. But yeah, so it's mainly, it's more admin as opposed to hands-on coaching, Rushy.
Do you do you miss the the full day-to-day coaching? Obviously, you were a Kent for a few years.
Yeah.
Do you miss that side of it, or is it just a different role which like you're enjoying equally, but in a different sense?
I've enjoyed both roles. There are many aspects of the hands-on role that I do miss. I really miss, in some cases, it's put it this way: you see results in a shorter space of time in your hands-on role than you do in your admin role. In your admin role, your decisions are filtered through another layer or two before anything gets implemented, and therefore you wait longer sometimes to see results. What I've had to retrain my brain to accept and 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 to enjoy is that part of my role is also developing a high performance team. And instead of necessarily looking at players who are now 2 layers removed from me, to look at whether the high performance team, high performance manager, sports science and medicine, coach education, are these lads and ladies, are they developing? And if they are, to get as much satisfaction as I would have gotten watching players develop. So it's almost forced me to take on board a slightly different mindset, and maybe to evaluate what I'm doing in a slightly different light. But I'm still a part of my role is also mentoring some of these persons in those positions, making sure that not only are they delivering on their targets and objectives, but that they're growing. We want everybody to grow in the roles that they've accepted. So and yeah, man, I'm it's been a long time since I played, and it's now nearly 5 years since I coached hands-on. But you miss the dressing room there. There's no two ways about it. It's always going to be the environment that I'm most comfortable in. I don't think that will ever change. So yeah, there are bits and pieces that you miss, mate. But like I said, this role brings slightly different challenges, and I am mentoring to a certain degree, but you'll never recreate that dressing room environment outside of the dressing room, you know.
Yeah. And speaking of dressing rooms, just to completely change the subject a little bit, you we went out on the social media probably a month ago now, Jim, and we had a bit of a debate going around overseas professionals who played club cricket, and we kind of asked our followers who was the greatest overseas professional they'd ever played with or seen, and your name, believe it or not, cropped up very, very frequently. Because for listeners and viewers of the show, Jimmy played a lot of cricket up in the northeast of England, where me and Rushley are from. Jim, how did a Jamaican end up playing up in club cricket up in Durham?
Well, first of all, let me just start out by saying that I yeah, it's there's some great pros in the northeast when I was there. For people to put me in the bracket of people who I consider to be great pros, Steve Russell from Sacristan, Ijaz Ahmed, and Clayton Lambert down in the NYSD. I think Roger Harper was at Blackhall for a while. Phil Simmons at Gisborough. Derek Parry, legend, absolute great pro at Horden. For me,
Jimmy, can I
anyway,
just say that you've got a fantastic memory, not only naming the players but naming the clubs as well.
Mate, I was here long enough, mate. I was here long. Oh God, I mean, I'm not that old, Rushy, man. Early onset hasn't come in yet, mate. Give me a bit of time. Yeah, so I started. I went to Scotland when I was 20. That was the first time I'd come to the UK. I had a wonderful time. I was in Edinburgh, and fantastic city, and it was a great introduction to professional cricket for many different reasons. However, it was a bit wet, and we had understatement of the year. We had about I say about 20 fixtures, and easily maybe 6 or 7 of them got rained out over the course of the summer. And I enjoyed the experience, and I enjoyed everything that went with it. But I wanted a little bit more cricket. And so the gentleman who was looking out for me for clubs in those days, a lad called Jack Simmons, who was an off-spinner from Lancashire, had a little agency business going. And I asked him if he could get me playing somewhere where I could get more cricket. And Jack knew that there was a lot of cricket played during the week in the Northeast, and did a little bit of digging around, and that's how I ended up at Appleton. And it worked out well. I was at a stage, so I went to Appleton when I was 21, but I was at a stage in my life when, and this is in hindsight, I wouldn't have known at the time, but in terms of my own development, playing 3-4 cup games a week, plus your slightly longer version on the weekend, and then being in a club where you had at least 2 lads who weren't far behind me age-wise, but were good enough training partners so that entire days would be spent playing cricket. So myself, Jimmy Daly, and Sean Berbick would practice together from 10 till 3, go home, sleep, get some tea, and then come back and play a cup game on an evening. But in that period, 21 to 24, when I started playing international cricket, my game just went through the roof, in large part because I was playing so much competitive cricket, and I had practice partners who were of a pretty good standard. So the skill acquisition scientists will say that you're in a rich learning environment, blah, 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 and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, so that's how I ended up at Appleton. I was searching for more cricket, and the guy who represented me at the time got approached by the club for an overseas pro, and hence, yeah, that was me for the next few years.
Amazing.
You've obviously, well, I know for a fact, you know, you've got some very good lifelong friends from the area.
Mm.
And I obviously, when we found out you were coming on the show, I sent a few messages just asking if anyone had any kind of interesting stories or anything. And the one thing I thought we came back was ask him how he keeps himself warm in a caravan over in the lakes. Oh dear. Yeah. So yes, I used to stop with Sean Berbick's dad. In those days, and his dad had a little caravan over in Ullswater, and myself and Tapi and Sean's dad and an American friend of mine was a tall kid, he was about 6'5". We all ended up in the caravan one night, having to keep overnight, and we were short on everything. We were short on bed space, we were short on blankets and all the rest of it. So Berbick Senior had his own space. The other guy is 6'5", so he automatically qualifies for one end of the caravan. So that left me and Tapi with one little sheet this week to sort of juggle to see how we're going to stay warm over the course of the night. Suffice to say, we got through the night, but Tapi kept nicking the blanket, you know, over on his side, and then he got really wicked and sort of wrapped it under him. So in those days, he was starting to put on weight even then. So I couldn't retrieve the blanket. So yeah, that was me shivering and struggling in almost 0 degrees at that time of year. But it was good times, mate, you know. Tapi come over from Australia as a kid, and he also fell in love with the place and found a local lass and settled down. Went on to play for Durham. I think he played some one-day cricket for Durham back in the 90s at some point. But yeah, so he's another one who sort of, you know, put some roots down in the place. More permanent than me, but yeah, he's settled in he's now a northerner really, more than he's anything else, I think. You know. Definitely. So, like for a young lad, when I first joined Sunderland, we had Cam Cuffy came over as overseas.
Yeah.
And he broke into the test team after his 1 year at Sunderland. Yeah. Just from your point of view, you know, playing overseas as a young lad, different life experiences, does that set you up to then go and play international cricket around the world?
It can. Listen, at the end of the day, Roshi, there are many different sort of routes to the different levels. So you sit down and speak with your mates in the dressing room, and y'all some came through similar journeys, some slightly different. I think all of them have certain things that are common across everybody. So all of us who have played first class cricket in the Caribbean to get to that level, most or all of us would have played under 19 cricket in the Caribbean. Not everybody necessarily played cricket overseas. Some people stayed in the Caribbean and played international cricket. I'll be the first to say that I think my experience helped me at a critical phase in my development to develop into an international player. I think Cameron might say the same thing. I wouldn't dare speak on his behalf, but I think for most of us who came up with the right mindset, I think the environment in England offered the potential for that, irrespective of which league you played in. The conditions were different, first of all. So you're learning.
Back.
Sorry, 1 second, lads. Hold on 1 second. Let me just go and get a charger here. 1 second. 1 second.
It's on the floor.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Just gonna make the final cut, Jimmy. What was
Yeah.
we were on about there. So
Yeah, sorry about that. My battery, what you say?
we was on there about like obviously loads of the guys coming over in the 90s, early 2000s, stuff like
Yeah,
that. And how the experience in that. I think
Yeah.
one of the questions we'll never get them days back, will we, lads? Where we've got top professional cricketers coming over and playing in our local leagues, like with franchises and all that kind of stuff. Do we think them days are like over now? They were like the golden age for cricket, wasn't it?
Purely because all the rules have changed from sort of government side of things and passports and visas and things like that. Local cricket now, if you've got anyone involved in any international kind of stuff, it's almost not impossible, but it's very, very hard for them to gain access for visas and stuff. And for young lads playing first class cricket, for us trying to go overseas, it's just as difficult. For young guys, like Jimmy and lads that came here, young lads going away, I've done it a few times. It makes a big difference in how you develop, not only as a cricketer, but as a person, as a young man going forward, having those experiences, playing cricket in different environments.
Agreed.
And I think it's just a massive shame, and I think it'll be a huge loss for cricket worldwide that, that's it's being made harder to do.
I would agree with that, Roshi. I'll add a little bit to it, or add a little bit more detail. It wasn't just, what's the best way to put it? When you get elite level, Johnny, it's not just your technical ability. To stay at elite level for any length of time, for as long as Roshi has done, the guys who go on and play the level above and they stay there for a while. There are a lot of questions that are being asked outside of the technical that you have to answer. And when you leave home and you take on situations and environments that you're not familiar with, it asks you a lot of questions that if you answer them well, you're actually preparing yourself, in a sense, for life at the elite level. You have to be adaptable, you have to be resilient, you have to have some backbone, some balls, whatever you call it. And most people who have traveled and played outside of their own home environment, most people will attest to the fact that in these critical areas, the experience helped them. I'm not saying that alone will move you to the top, but I am saying that it can play a big role in that happening. And I would say for myself, it definitely helped me. It was the first time So I grew up playing club cricket in Jamaica, and I played club cricket with test players and first class players. So I was one of many. Courtney Walsh should have done the same thing. He played club cricket with Michael Holding, so he had somebody great sharing a new ball with him at the next end. When you came to England as the pro, your mindset changes. You are the man. You know, if the team loses, it's your fault. You can make 100 and the team loses, and the club will tell you, pro, it's your fault. That kind of thing. And you develop the mentality of being the person to get the job done. And just that mindset as one of many learning experiences was massive for me. I'd never been in that situation before, where when you look around you, no disrespect to anybody else, because I play good club players, but you are the man and you have to get used to that. And that sort of pulled out performances that maybe if you didn't think like that, it wouldn't have happened. And then, it's just the adaptability. You find a way. You're on a pudding patch and you have to find a way to score some runs to win a game, or you're on a green top and some typical good English club seamer is having the ball dancing around in front of you. You have to find a way to get the job done. And that, again, when you move up levels, every day, those are the kind of questions that you get asked. Can you find a way in this situation to come out on top? And I don't think I would have gotten a lot of that back home, because by 1920, I had conquered Jamaican and Caribbean conditions. I was making runs on our feather beds. Ball wasn't swinging. So in those key areas, the whole package became very, very useful in developing players who, and not just West Indians. I mean, English guys who went over to New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia benefited a hell of a lot. And it's a shame that things are getting so difficult now.
Yeah. How did you find going from kind of playing the club cricket over in the Northeast and then going away with like the test side and stuff? Was that ever like a different transition, or was it just?
How old were you, Jimmy, when you made your test debut?
I wasn't that young, I was 24, but I've been playing first class cricket for about 8 years, Rushy, because I started when I was about 16, 17, but I had to transition roles. I had to transition from an all-rounder, bowling left arm filth and batting like 6 and 7 to being a genuine. Well, I was always a top order batter with my own age group, but you had to prove to the men that, So I was 24, but I came to the Northeast when I was 21. So 21, 22, 23, about 3 seasons in the Northeast as a non-international, and then a couple of seasons after as an international. So I made the transition while playing for this one club in the Northeast, But the transition wasn't that difficult per se. If you spend the whole summer in England, usually a week of batting on concrete when I get home would get me back in good stead for those wickets. And in terms of the transition from first class to international, again, the first class cricket in the Caribbean at the time the standards were fairly high. So, there were questions that would be asked of you at international level, but most of us then transitioned fairly well, in the long term.
How did you find going into that West Indies dressing room? Because I imagine when you started playing, there was some of the big names of West Indies cricket still playing.
Yeah, man. Richie, who played at Gateshead. Desi, who played at Desmond, who played at Blackhall. Roger Harper was in that team. Ambrose, Walsh, Hooper. Lara had been in the team about a year before I got in. So I've been around the lads for a few years and I'd played against them and so on. But Rushy, it was like a dream. When you get that maroon cap for the first time, it's unbelievable trying to describe the feeling. I'd spent most of my adult life, most of my teenage life dreaming about that day. I'd skip school to go and watch Clive Lloyd and to see him, Greenwich and Haynes and Richie play cricket. So to be in the same space as them was special. And I enjoyed it, man. It was I was living my dream at the time, if you know what I mean.
Do you remember your test debut? Can you remember? Did you score any?
I got a half century in the second innings against South Africa. But what makes me smile more is I got some polls as well, which was very interesting.
Who was
Some
your,
very bad.
who was your first wicket?
I can't remember who the first wicket was, but I got 4 South African poles in one innings. It's the worst batting you'll ever see in your life, man.
Must have been a dodgy wicket, was it?
No, man, flat as just long hops that got cut to point and people played over half volleys. Man, it was listen, I'll claim them, but there's nothing special about it, to be honest, man. But it looks good on the CV. But it was an interesting test match because it was a one-off test against South Africa that we were losing badly up to the last day when Walsh and Ambrose did what Walsh and Ambrose do best. They found a way to, I don't know, they needed 80 runs with 8 wickets in hand. Peter Kirsten and the captain, left-hander, Australian guy, what's his name? South African, Kepler Vessels. 2 of them not out on 50s apiece, pitch flatters, and they need 80 runs. Game over as far as I'm concerned. They turn it around and we won by 50 runs. We bowled them out 30 runs later. A bit of a story behind that because Brian Lara had the entire South Africa team drinking double shots the night before until the wee hours because
Really?
He went into this venue at about midnight, having slept since 6 in the evening. He was as fresh as a daisy. And they were sort of like on last rounds, getting ready now to go back and thing. And he kept plying them with double shots till about 5 in the morning. He put them in taxis.
Was Lara?
He put them back in taxis, right?
Because Lara had a reputation for being a bit of a party animal.
Yeah, but he wasn't the only one. But he just planned it well. You see, he would come home from a day's play and sleep from 6 till midnight, and then hit the road at 1 o'clock. Come back in at 4, 5, sleep till the bus left at 8 o'clock. So he's gotten more sleep than most of us.
Superb.
Who went to bed at 11 o'clock. He was fresh as a daisy.
Obviously.
So all them South African players came out. Brian kept telling us that morning, listen, Jimmy, we just need 1 wicket. Because Kepler and Peter Kirsten were too old for the crowd that went out that night. But everybody else was out. Hansi Cronje, all of them were out. All the guys to come, Mark Rushmere, all of them that were going back in the middle were with him drinking double shots. And he kept telling us on the morning, he kept saying, Jimmy, we just need 1 wicket. We just need a breakthrough. I didn't know what he meant until after the test match. He told me what had happened the night before. But yeah, it was an interesting game. Good test if you're a West Indian. And then there was nobody at the ground. Nobody was there, man. They boycotted the test match because Anderson Cummins, who played for Durham, wasn't selected. They selected Kenny Benjamin in front of him, and the Bajan public boycotted the game. So if you scored 50, you had to put on the bat and clap yourself because there ain't nobody else there to clap you. It's one of those games.
Wow.
50 odd tests in Jim. 53
Yeah.
was it? Who was the
Somewhere about them.
from a bowling? Who was the toughest bowler you ever faced?
Was him by a long shot. Listen, himself and Shane Warne in terms of himself and Shane Warne in terms of greatness. You could, I mean, Shane Warne's great. The 2 of them on a different level, but Shane Warne can't hurt you. Shane Warne can't hurt you. Wasim can hurt you as well as get you out. That's the difference. So Shane Warne only going to hurt you if you tap it a sweep or something like that. But Wasim will hit in the ribs and break your rib cage. And Wasim the surface was irrelevant for Wasim. He didn't need any help from our surface. Wasim, because he could swing the ball both ways at pace, even on a sandpit, he could be aggressive in terms of bowling to get you out. Whereas your McGraths and your Ambroses and them on certain surfaces, they're going to hold back, hold a line and length and try and bore you out, which is a skill, don't get me wrong. But yeah, Wasim was just on a different level, man. Different level.
Is there anyone you didn't like playing with or against? Any teammates who you didn't get on with?
Not really. There are a few guys I wouldn't go for a drink with after a game, but nothing major. You know what I mean? It's just, I guess, personality clashes more than anything else. In terms of playing against, on a personal level, not really. But if Wazim was taking a rest for a test match, I wouldn't mind. You know, like but in terms of a personality issue, not really, Roshi. I was, you play international bubble, mate. You know what I mean? So it's it's almost irrelevant. The personalities on the other side of the fence. You know what I mean? Those usually don't have anything to do with me anyway. Yeah.
And who was like the West Indies teams that you played in? Who was like your best friend, best teammate? Anyone you were like really, really like close friends with?
I would have gone into the team with probably Courtney Walsh being the main man for me, because we'd grown up together playing in Jamaica. He had been playing international cricket since 1984. Family, he and his mom and his to the team, pretty close to Courtney. And then by the time the career finished, I'd say people like Brian Lara and Chandrapal were really good mates. Brian had played under 19 cricket with for years, so we toured on quite a few young West Indies teams, and we developed a really good relationship. And then Shiv came into the team after me, but we ended up rooming for almost 10 years. So, that tells its own story, kind of thing. So I'd say Courtney, Brian, and Shiv over the length of the career.
You were close to Brian, right? You correct me if I'm wrong, or put the story right. Is it true that you once got in between Brian Lara and someone else on an aeroplane and missed a test match with a cut hand? Is that right? Or is that close to the truth?
Half. 50% there. I didn't get between anybody. The story is Brian and Franklin Rose, who played at Sunderland as well.
That's Sunderland. I played with him.
It's a lot of West. It's a lot of West Indians. A lot of West Indians played in the Northeast, man. Every come up with us that the person played somewhere in the Northeast.
Jimmy, I think that's why.
I cut my one hand.
That's why the nightlife's dying. There's no West Indians coming over anymore. Sunderland city centre is dying a death.
I socialized with Franklin. He's fucking loose, man.
I know he was.
Yeah. And he gets when the red mist comes down. When the red mist comes down, you have to be very careful as well. Yeah. But no, the plane incident, it was self-inflicted, Rushy. I was trying to get through a very thick crust on a French roll, and when the knife went through the crust, it went through the finger that was behind it as well. So it doesn't make for a very good story, but it is what it is.
You could have went with
50%. No, because then I would have implicated Rosie unfairly. You know what I mean? I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. But yeah, it's one of those freak things that happened. A bit unfortunate, because I ended up finishing my career never playing a test match in South Africa, which I regret, really.
Oh, really?
But such is life, Yeah, it happens.
If your club is looking for new kit next season, contact Ambition Sport. Whatever your sport, whatever your standard, whatever your club size, Ambition Sport can create bespoke, fully sublimated kits to be proud of, as well as your training and leisure wear. Ambition Sport also run online club shops for your members to be able to order their own kit, taking away the hassle of organising orders. And with a 10% discount off your first order using the code LENGTHDOESMATTER, now really is the time to get set up. To find out more, email info@ambitionsport.com or find us on Instagram @ambition_activewear, where you'll find a range of kits already produced for all sports and all standards. Ambition Sport. Get your kit on.
So now, just obviously working a lot with Foxy, who's a mental health advocate and stuff like that. there was an incident where you suffered a bit of a burnout and took a bad blow to the face. Is that true? And how did it happen? What was the sort of the scenario, the circumstances, and things?
Yeah, it is true. A lot of this is hindsight, Rushy, because we didn't have people in the game who knew about much of that back in those days. But the bottom line is that I say about 4 years of just playing nonstop, no rest, just tour after tour, straight from a West Indies tour, straight into county cricket, straight from county cricket onto a plane on a test tour. And it caught up with me on that tour of England. And it was interesting because in the first innings, I was batting against Graham Rose, who was a very military medium fast bowler. And I remember thinking to myself, Graham can hit me if he wants. I'd never felt like that in my life. I really felt exposed. And for the first time in my life, I got scared, mate. And then, hold on one second, let me just get rid of this geezer. Sorry about that, yeah. And then in the second innings, I remember sitting on the balcony, trembling, just not wanting to go and bat because I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was, to be honest. Okay. And in those days we didn't have anybody to speak about these things. So you got on with it. And it was a particularly quick delivery that got me. And it wasn't even a bounce. It wasn't a bouncer actually. It was length, and I went into it and hit me straight in the eye, which itself tells you a story because you never get hit straight in your eye. You always get hit. You turn away at the last minute and you get hit maybe on the side.
Can I ask, Jimmy, because for viewers who never saw you play, you used to wear the helmet with just the earpieces, didn't have the grill, did it?
No, I never used a grill.
At any point, when you saying you were sat and you felt a little bit frightened, did you ever think about, I'm going to put a face, like a grill on or anything like that?
Not really, because if I were to play the logic out in my mind, I'd end up getting hit on the side. I'd never work a logic out where I'm going to go down. But it's hard to tell you, to describe Rushy, but all I can say is that even in a test match, couple of test matches before, I was realizing that I was batting and my mind, I couldn't focus, I couldn't lock onto the ball. And all of this is more hindsight. In that moment in time, or for those few weeks, I didn't know what was happening. All I knew, I was in a bad place. I'd gone out to dinner with Courtney the night before I got hit, almost crying, telling Courtney, please, speak to the team management and get them to pull me from these games. I can't make it. Anyway, so that was the short-term issue. Longer term was that I was never the same batsman for the rest of my career. I couldn't carry a 5-test series after that, Rushy. Mentally, I could last 2-3 test matches and then I was done. Whereas before, I play 5 tests against England and I jump onto a next test series immediately, because you're fresh, kind of thing. So it's just one of those things, Rushy, where we didn't have that expertise in the team. We didn't have people who could identify issues. I look back now, I've explained the symptoms and what I was feeling to people since then, and they say, yeah, classic case of this, classic case of that, but we just didn't have it at the time. I remember a few years later, in about 2000, when Chandrapal was going through the same issue, and thankfully we had the expertise within the team, and we pulled him straight away. He played the first test against Zimbabwe, actually helped us win the test match, and then knocked on the room one night and he said, Jimmy, listen, I need to tell you something. And he described what he was going through, and I called the doctors right away, and things had started to change then. Now there's a lot more information out there, and people know kind of what signs to look for, but it didn't exist then. No regrets, because I've had a chance to pull kids as a, I guess, as a coach or a team manager, and so since when you see the signs, and you can do it without second guessing yourself, because you know
Yeah.
kind of what the symptoms could look like. But yeah, it's a true story, Roshi. No, they weren't making that one up.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate you sharing. Hopefully, like I say, the fact you've had that experience will help people, because no doubt cricketers now will experience something like that at some point in their career, and to have someone who's been through it and played test cricket, no doubt will help if it ever comes to that.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people out there who have mental challenges for different reasons. I think mine was just too much cricket. It could be other issues with people, but listen, I think it just helps now that we're in an age where we have more information and we have more people qualified to identify some of these signs. And yeah, if it saves one, I mean, I think to myself, how much more of a Marcus Trescothick or a Michael Yardy or a Ian Trott could we have gotten if maybe we picked up some of these signs earlier, and can we still get there earlier rather than having them burn out in front of the whole world and not be able to make it back, So it's, we get there, man. We get there.
Top man. Right, I think that's us, Jimmy, mate. Thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to come on. Really insightful, really interesting, some good crack and some real honesty as well. So I think, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, man.
I appreciate the opportunity, lads. And I hope, forget this one, but I hope just generally that the program keeps growing from strength to strength. And Johnny, your cricket is by the by. We won't talk about your cricket. But Roshi,
whatever
you
does.
keep doing
It's all about him and his cricket.
Yeah, Roshi, you keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, man. You keep doing what you're doing, Roshi, and yeah, hopefully, mate, you taste success for quite a few more years, mate.
Fingers crossed. I'm chasing Steve-O. If I'm going at 46 like Steve-O, then I'm doing well.
Tell you what.
Yeah, I tell you, mate. In England, you have all the ingredients because you bowl straight enough and you're consistent enough. So you've been nibbling them outside edges for many years to come. And just make sure you have a good keeper and a good first slip.
Jimmy, I'll tell you something, mate. The way this lad's been thinking in the last 2 weeks, he'll not be playing when he's 46.
Oi, mate, this is me downtime. October's me month off. This is me time to relax. Hard work starts in November.
You want to be able to remember it, though.
Hey,
no,
mate, Jimmy,
Johnny,
you've got to be able to switch off.
This period is downtime, or else you're going to get burnout like me. This is downtime, and then November to December is all about doing strength work. Rushdie don't need to bowl until February because bowling is the least of his problems. His problem now, his challenge now, is to make sure that the body can carry him. So, yeah, Rushdie, make sure you hit the gym come November, December, absolutely, and get yourself ready. Yeah,
cheers to that, Jimmy. Well said.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's good catching up. It's good catching up with you lads, and yeah, just wishing you all the best, man.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Have a good time.
Good luck with everything going forward. If you're ever over
all right, man,
in the northeast, drop us a message.
All right, man.
Great to catch you.
Cool. You take care, lads. All the best.
Cheers, Jim. That's been my favourite one we've had. The love he's got for the northeast, the fact he remembers everything about his time here, just shows why people voted him as the greatest northeast pro. And it's not just performance on the field, but the fact that he's an absolute legend of a fella. And how honest was he? Like, I loved every minute of that. Really.
No need to thank us, mate.